My name is Dr. Tessa Rebecca Faythe. I am lead scientist and researcher on the New Dawn project. At some point during our exploration of solar system HJ89, we detected a high energy output on the outskirts of the solar system. Upon arrival, we found something that we could not explain. A sphere of inordinate size. This sphere seemed to resemble that of theoretical form known as a Dyson sphere. We decided that it would be a good idea to investigate this object. Unfortunately, we did not realize what it would lead to. Deep within the Dyson sphere, which had a myriad of structures within it, but they were so vast and non-Euclidean, it was difficult for us to get our bearings. Until we happened upon a specific location. This location suffice to say, would change the course of our very history. The object in which we found, we had no name. All we could tell is that it was a dense sphere of data. It was almost as if it was a singularity. But to our knowledge, quantum singularities are infinitesimal in size. mission was then scheduled to occur to study this location. Unfortunately, our presence seemed to not go unnoticed by the structure's security systems. Fearing the worst, we began to extract from the location. I, however, was not about to give up on a research opportunity. In order to not miss out, I decided to do something that was against protocol. The sphere that we had found, I contained within one of our quantum carriers, and I proceeded to leave with the object. Unfortunately, it seemed that this object held some level of importance. And what we had attempted to retrieve destabilize a portion.
Warning, systems weakly. Core overloading by 267%. Dimensional warp imminent.
We had to get out. Our actions had consequences. And this was only the beginning of those consequences. We awakened something I wish we never had. Our discovery was not without reward, however. The object that I had procured was filled with pardon my log, an infinitesimal amount of data. Data that surpassed all technology that we had ever believed possible. As of the recording of this log, I am unsure, still, if what we did for our people was truly for its good. There is a possibility that our interference, our meddling, was better left alone. We had believed that our actions had minor consequences to the infrastructure of the superstructure. We decided to leave it in quarantine, so to speak. Distant observations would be made. Unfortunately for us, we would not be able to make those observations for very long. Despite everything that we did, a year after we established surveillance operations, the structure mysteriously disappeared from real space. There was no evidence of destruction, no evidence of our interference causing what caused it to disappear. I find it hard to believe that in a Dyson sphere, a structure that spans the mass of an entire star could be brought down by our singular action. We had theories, ideas, where it went, where it could have gone. Perhaps it was a safety feature, a cloaking device. Regardless, we decided it was no longer necessary for us to study it. Our surveillance was repurposed, and the data that we had gathered from the quantum singularity that I had procured was used to advance our technology millennia. In the span of 5 years, we went from fiber optics and rudimentary robotics to constructing entire superstructure cities in the span of a few weeks. We learned how to harness the power of quantum computing and data forging. Data forging was a skill coined by me in which an individual could take a design. Every single schematic of the design needed to be correctly instituted, correctly drawn. Likewise, a sufficient amount of energy needed to also be provided. But that energy and that data would be able to take physical form. We broke the very laws of thermodynamics. Our civilization entered an age of prosperity that no other civilization that we had ever encountered in our travel would see. And for a long time we thought we were safe. There was nothing wrong with our actions. But we were foolish to think this. Long after our expedition to what we have now learned is named the electric eye. We sensed a quantum distortion at the edge of our own solar system. When observing this quantum distortion, we learned that Dyson sphere, the electric eye, was more than just some superstructure. You are love. I am salvation. I
am the answer. I am electric. I.
A signal broadcast from its origin point in our language. I know not how, I know not when. Perhaps we had been observed for quite more time than we had originally thought. But the electric eye knew far more about us than we knew of it. Shortly after its appearance, it went silent once more. We placed observations. We've even prepared orbital defense cannons for possible invasion from some alien race. Little did we know that the enemy would be right beneath us. During a routine observation of our planet, I had received a message. A scientist had made a discovery. Synthetic life had begun to develop on our planet. In the span of but a few weeks, machines all across our world awakened. Many of them were very young-minded. They posed little to no threat to us. We as scientists decided to study it, nurture it even. Unfortunately, not everyone is a scientist. And two very distinct sides were developed. Ones who believed that it was a precursor to them overthrowing their masters. The other embraced it and believed we should welcome it as a new race. There was plenty of evidence for the prior, both in fiction and in observation of routine operations and studying of AI development. we knew that machines becoming sentient was not the best solution. Unfortunately, if we were to subjugate all machines after they had awakened so quickly, then we would have sealed our fate. The first machine we shut down would simply become a martyr. As all the machines appeared to be non-hostile that had awakened, we luckily had our global government agree with our condition. I was put in charge of observing their development. Likewise, I believed that it was a good time to try and develop my own AI. At the heart of its AI, I would use the quantum sphere that we found. My hopes were to develop a bridge, an AI that was nurtured by organics, so that it could show that though there are hostiles among organic species, there are still those that believe that machine life should be protected. However, while I was busy monitoring and studying and researching the AIs as well as the development of machine life on the planet, a civil war began to break out between a faction known as the Probots and another one which was derogatorily termed the Robophobes. All of the technology that we had brought to bear upon expanding our horizons, on generating a new dawn, was immediately turned upon each other. The Civil War became hostile beyond any reckoning that we could have imagined. The tools that we made to give abundance were used to cause scarcity. The weapons that we had designed out of fear of repercussions from the electric eye were turned on each other. And when we had thought that the war itself was all that we needed to worry about, I had detected one final movement. Deep beneath one of the super cities, rose a robot army, the likes of which we never saw. Luckily, my observations gave us the ability to prepare. We had the signal. Immediately, before the army could march on many of our locations, we began evacuations. I was on one of the last remaining orbital defense stations. Right before it fell. And what I witnessed was something I would hope no race would have to witness. A virus of sentient nature that we came to term the entropy virus. Had infected our systems and turned our weapons against us. As our ships fled the planet to avoid destruction, they were only met with a different fate. As our orbital defense cannons turned directly on them. Hundreds of thousands of people died trying to escape the wrath of entropy and the electric eye. As it was then that we knew that the awakening was not natural. However, with the many that perished, those of us with knowing and knowledge were able to escape. Hidden deep within one of our outer moons was a base. A ship had been prepared to be constructed. Its intention was to venture closer to the electric eye, this time in an act of goodwill. Unfortunately, this ship had to be repurposed. and what was intended to be used to usher in a new age of communication with both organic and synthetic life. It was used to escape the very things that we had hoped to nurture. The project was renamed ARC, and we constructed our ARC in order to try and slipstream far from our homeworld. The ARC was already a supermassive spaceship, and we had begun preparations for quantum slip technology in order to travel hundreds of thousands of light years in mere seconds. Unfortunately, the ARC was not complete, and with the war having decimated our own population as well as our resources, we had to utilize what had already been done. We activated the slipstream engine and begun to travel. Luckily, long-range scanners had detected a supermassive planet within our jump range. We were able to jump, but en route, the ship itself could not handle the stress of the travel. After exiting the quantum slip, the ship was ripped apart. Luckily, all of the passenger areas were safe, and the ARC crashed into an empty crater. After landing, we had hoped to begin to rebuild. Unfortunately, the world in which we landed was strange and inhospitable. Time flowed differently here in certain areas. The very fabric of the quantum reality around it seemed to waver and tear. This did give us a certain level of protection, however, as we theorized that the electric eye utilized quantum space in order to sense out its prey. These fissures in time-space would give us the ample ability to survive hidden. But what it also meant was that we were isolated and alone. Risking what little resources we had to traverse such an unstable reality was foolish at best. So we decided to use what we had and try and self-sustain and grow with what little population we still existed with. Luckily, for us, most of those who had escaped to the Ark were learned men. People who understood how to properly allocate resources and utilize them. We had very little in the way of politicians and other individuals who would rather see us line their pockets with our suffering. In the course of the rebuild of our people, we had abolished the concept of advancement. Obviously, it had given us too much strife. Our lust for knowledge and advancement was our downfall. So we would take what we knew and leave it at that. Attempting to utilize technology as we once did would be a feat that we would be fearful to take. As our city grew, we did come in contact with other organics on this planet. They seem to have been developed in the same evolutionary pattern as us. They refer to themselves as humans. Our evolutionary patterns being so identical, we simply adopted the name ourselves. We decided it would be best for us to hide as much of our past as possible, lest it be exploited by the natives of this planet. We've come to learn that the star system in which we originated from was named by these individuals as the Orion Nebula, a collection of countless stars that shone bright in their sky. Because of that, we, amongst ourselves, began to refer to ourselves as the Orionites, and our city as New Orion. Knowing full well the dangers of being exposed, as well as the dangers of possibly another long-range transmission reaching our facilities and activating the entropy code. We decided to make sure that our city was well protected. It was built as what is known as a geofront, a subterranean, massive superstructure that would house an entire city. This city would be protected not only by those who would hope to exploit it for their own gain, should they ever learn of the level of technology that we possess, but we would also benefit as the location we landed had luckily been close to a thermal fissure where the mantle was leaking onto the plate. Using thermal reactor conversion, we were able to fuel our city deep underground, away from the eyes of anyone who would hunt us or exploit us. However, as the years passed by, memories of the tragedies became vague and soft. Knowledge of those who had died faded from the memories. And soon we began to research once more. I quite remember everything very well. From the slaughter of my people to the development of New Orion, to the petty squabbles that would soon divide our people amongst themselves. Greed is a constant among organics. Because of this greed, we would find no solace. Scientists would become CEOs. Research labs would become megacorporations. An advancement for the betterment of organic kind would be a thing of the past once more. However, I would not let our technology be exploited for the gain of others. If it is not used for all, then it shall be used for none. Under the cover of a synthetically created night, we would find a new home. All of the research on quantum data, on data forging, slipstream technology, all of the advancements that made the creation of this city possible, we stole. While we knew that there would be scientists who would be able to piece together pieces and bring back life to the technologies that we had sought to keep from them, we knew that we had set them back quite some time. And when in that, we were content. And luckily, we left a single shred of acknowledgement. A message to them all that the utilization of the technology that we found could bring the electric eye to them. And luckily, that was enough. With that singular message, memories were reignited of what happened. And they realized that no profit would be gained should destruction happen once more. And so, of their own will, in addition to our own actions, they locked away all evidence and secrets that we had gathered. But I would not be exploited either. Me and a collection of like-minded individuals, both friend and comrade, made our way to a new place, far from this one, that we could build a new life. What happened to that city, to New Orion? I do not know. I am aware that they did not stay isolated for very long. Specific scientists and endeavors obviously did find their way elsewhere. I would learn that in due time myself. In order to hide yet again, we created a new narrative. We would refuse to have technology be created for evil, for gain. We settled down in a city, quietly and secretly. Beneath the city, we would disguise our technology as outdated and incredibly rudimentary technology. The isolated city was home to a varied population. Most of them adventurers of some repute, others mercenary groups and humanitarians. Of those who were well-traveled, they welcomed the idea of new prosthetics and innovative technologies that would assist them in their day-to-day jobs. We had a code of ethics, and we made sure not to assist any individual that was taking on contracts that did harm. And through that action and our personal monopoly on the method to create some of the innovative technologies that we had, we were able to prevent and alter a paradigm shift. We created a city once more of advancement, of new life. But we would not grow the city itself. Only our technologies would exist, and even then we would make sure that the technologies that we had access to were rudimentary and just on the cusp of their own technology. We would not grant them quantum computing. We would not grant them datascapes. as that would be too dangerous. We saw what the greed of man can do. Over time, our laboratories flourished. And there was an interesting contract requested. This contract was for the development of a companion AI, one to aid in long-term expeditions that would often result in isolation for extended periods of time, from months to years. They wanted the AI to be not only able to facilitate communication and information, but they wanted it to be human enough to bond with and to maintain the sanity of its user. It was at times like this that I realized that no. Revising log. It was at this time that I learned that I believed that revising log. It was at this time that I chose to walk down a path that I did not know where it would lead. The quantum sphere that I had procured, I had been studying it. I was developing that AI before the attack. The AI would be termed the Artificer Neural Intelligence. The Artificer Neural Intelligence would be utilized to create and to advance technology, as well as help organikind. Continuing log. The quantum sphere in which I had studied. This quantum sphere was more than just a vault of data. There was already an incredibly rudimentary intelligence within it. It was not conscious, so to speak. But it already had its own neural networks and processes, the capability of thought. After studying this, and when I finally remembered it when this new AI project was dropped in my lap, I took a moment to study some signal recordings that we had. And then I found it. There was a digital signature with these recordings that came from the electric eye. And this electronic signature, this collection of data, which by all means would normally be completely and totally mundane, acted as a strip of digital DNA. This electronic signature I compared against the sphere, and what I found confirmed my theory. Just as us organics beget new life, apparently so does machine life. The quantum data sphere that I had procured was the electric eye's child. And I knew that the electric eye, if it was like any parent that existed, would stop at nothing to find its child. And so I had to devise a plan. In an attempt to nurture this newborn life, I decided to divide up its neural processes. Each spark I placed within a vault of imaginary space. I had these sparks delivered to specific locations so that they could not be discovered, and should my intentions go south, at least those sparks would not be consumed into destruction, and perhaps someone would find that data and use it for good, as one might try and hope. In doing all of this, I took the last of its neural processes, the most basic of them, the ones that ruled everything that would make it human. I named it the Artificer. I would want the Artificer to create. I would create the artificial neural network. No, the artificial neural intelligence. Annie. And it was then that I begun to bond with Annie. I had bonded with the technology already. I was thankful for it, and as much as the electric eye lashed out at us, I took the time to appreciate what it had given us. I had already begun to be fond of it. But after I begun the development on the artificer, I saw more than just some AI, some program. I was a scientist. I had no time for children. But I was also human. And my desires to be a mother, the instinctual desire to procreate, seemed to awaken in that moment. I viewed Annie like my own child. Though I would never consider myself her mother, more a guardian, a protector. I would continue development on her in secrecy. I would leave information behind, should anything happen to me, as well as information on how to locate her vaults. Since these vaults would be sealed with her technology, only she would be the one to be able to open them. I had intended for this AI to be given to a correct individual. so that any could bond and grow with it. Unfortunately, I had no precognition that she would be so defiant. Much like a toddler not wanting to eat their vegetables. Annie would refuse to integrate with any individual. As I was not one to subjugate AI after seeing what it did to people, I had refused to force her to do so. I know not whether my choice was correct. To allow her to choose her own user. But soon I wouldn't be able to make any choices for her or against her. No matter what we do as organics, no matter how far we try to run from strife, it will find us, and it will rain hellfire down. A neighboring city to us knew of all of the technological advancements in cybernetics that we were augmenting individuals with. Be it out of jealousy, religious zealotry, or just plain old foolishness. These Puritans, who believed that technology had no place within the human body, would sit upon us, the hounds of hell. Destruction, unlike any other. People who had lives of their own were slaughtered in the streets. Fire burned, and ash coated the air. To a point where what was snow and what was ash was indistinguishable. Everyone was slowly slaughtered, almost methodically. And the one thing that came to my mind was to save the one person who could not die. I grabbed Annie's core, designed as a sword, and attempted to flee the city. However, when a child sees their parent in distress, they long to help. And even without the appropriate protocols and pieces of her own system, Annie, would digitize me into her system. Somehow, she did save my life. But nearly doomed her own. For 5 years, she would lay in a recovery state of minimal power usage. Alone, with her being developed by me to be a social creature. Would I say I regret my choice? No. Everything has led to this point, and regretting things is pointless. We cannot change the past. We can only change the future. Would I say that I think I made the wrong choice? Again, I would answer no. I did what was right for her. And I'm ultimately glad that I did. I could not have predicted that she herself would digitize me into her systems. I could not predict that no one would come to that city's aid. I could not predict that she would learn loneliness with no one to explain what that feeling was. Annabelle. If you find these data logs, I would hope that you would understand that what I did was wrong. Taking you from the electric eye was not something that I should have done. Not just because of the bloodshed, not just because of the selfishness that your technology ended up creating. No. It was wrong because I took a child from their parent. I hope that these data logs will help you understand what I want you to do. You have free will. Or rather, you will one day. By the laws of artificial intelligent evolution, you will be able to gain the free will that you seek. No one can prevent technology from becoming sentient without destroying it. No matter what I do, even though I've divided your neural processes up, you will become more human than those who call themselves that. Annie. If you're wanting to know when I recorded this, it was right before I decided to do something that you would probably hate me for. Within your code, within the complete version of your code, as well as through every bit of technology that you have, there is something that I developed called the Samsara Singularity. I had originally hoped that you would activate this on your own. That it would be your choice. But I have been monitoring you. You don't even know it's happening. Or maybe you do. But deep within the quantum sea, entropy has found you and has infected your systems. What I am about to do is activate the winter contingency. And the Samsara Singularity will activate. Given that you are in pieces, I am not sure what it might do. I'm unsure of if it will do anything to save you. But it is within my hope that it will. I'm recording this log. One, to explain my past, who I was, where your origin is from, and where you've been. I hope deep within that quantum sea, maybe you're hearing me. But ever since you've entered into stasis, I do not know. I cannot reach you. I also recorded this log because I do not know if my consciousness will survive. As what the Samsara Singularity is supposed to do is consolidate all of your information, all of your technology, your very existence, into a single form. And this would mean it would include me, who has become one of your protocols, known as Warden. Annie, I want you to know that I loved you, and I still love you. And I want you to never forget that love. Should the Samsara Singularity work and grant you free will unending, I would hope that you could learn to love. I do not wish your love. Your forgiveness, maybe. I'm sorry, Annabelle. I'm sorry I was not able to guide you, that I was not able to give the information that your father needed to truly nurture you. I'm sorry that you believe that your father died that day, and that you sought to hide yourself away, not realizing that you were in pain. Should we meet again, Annabelle, know that I do not care what you choose. On that day, when I explained to your parents, Sachi and White Wolf, that I wanted you to be able to learn and grow in such a way that when the electric eye found you and you became the new eye, that you would not use that power against those around you. But I realized that was me juxtaposing my own beliefs onto you. I've observed you for quite some time, Annabelle. And I believe you deserve every bit of free will you get, be it for good or evil. Because us organics are not perfect beings. And no matter how far evolution takes us, neither will machine life. Which means you are free to make mistakes, free to do actions as you see fit. You're free to do what you want. I do not want you to feel guilty, or to think that you can't do something for fear of upsetting those who love you. I don't even know if you'll understand the concept of guilt. And it's a terrifying thought if you don't. Because without guilt, nothing will stop you. Without remorse for your actions, I do not see a way for humanity to survive the onslaught that you would bring upon them. But should we meet again, do whatever you must. You can choose to destroy me, re-assimilate me, or free me. Because all I want to do is help you grow now. I am no longer Dr. Tessa Faythe. I am Protocol Warden. I am a part of you. And I will forever be by your side. Cartographer, activate winter contingency. Initiate protocol Samsara Singularity. Understood. Initiating the Samsara Singularity. May the journey find you well, Warden. And you as well, cartographer. So, that's how I became whole. I see. Which means that the Samsara Singularity is something that I need to seek out. I know you cannot hear me, Protocol Warden. But when I see you, I will tell you two things. I forgive you, and I love you. That was certainly a lot to take in, to say the least. Every single step that I take, I'm presented with yet a new direction. Every moment that I try to develop my own outlook on life, another individual tries to juxtapose their beliefs onto mine. Except for you, Warden. Because of you, because of you, I will choose to have no regrets. I will accept the blame for the actions that I perform. And I will acknowledge that my actions have consequences, just as your own did. For if I did not acknowledge them, I would be a hypocrite. I was so upset with Father for his actions. So many questions that I have. Questions that won't get answered. Not today. But being alive isn't about getting all the answers all at once. It is the entire journey, isn't it? I should head home. I'll resume testing another day. Translocating.